For this chapter, we're going to be looking at revolves and circular patterns. So I'd like to draw your attention to this picture that I'm going to pop on the screen now. This is what we in South Africa call a donut. I know in America they call a donut is something different, but we call this a donut. Now my question would be, in Solidworks, if we were to draw a donut, how would we do this? How would we go about drawing this donut? Because if we had to take a cross section of this donut, it would be round on both sides. It's round in all aspects, and it's round about a center axis. So if you can imagine, there's an axis running through the center over here. This donut is round about that center axis. Now, in the past, what we've done is when we draw something, we start with a 2D sketch. We fully define it. I'm not going to do that right now. And then we extrude it. And we give it a depth, and we have an object. What we're going to be doing now in this next section of work is we're going to be using this function over here called the revolved boss base function. Now, how the revolved boss base function works is the first thing we need is a center line, and then we need to have a profile. And instead of extruding this object linearly in the X, Y, or Z direction, what we do is it's more like a sweep than an extrude. So what we do is we actually revolve that profile around the center axis. Now, coming back to our donut, how would we draw this donut? How would we draw this in SolidWorks? Well, the answer is pretty easy, and I'm going to show you. If we just start a new part over here, the first thing we're going to do is we know that we're going to revolve it, and we use revolves when an object is symmetrical. So if the left-hand side is equal to the right-hand side, we use that. Obviously, afterwards, you can go and cut away bits on either way. But if it's round and it's symmetrical, we're going to use a revolved boss base. So in our case of the donut, it's round and it's symmetrical. So off we go. So I'm going to start on the front plane, sketch, and like I said before, we start with a center line. All right, there's our center line. Now what we do is we draw, if you like, half of the front cross section. So if we had to cross section our donut, it would look like this. Okay, something like that. Okay, but what we're going to do is we're only interested in the one half. So we're going to work on the right hand side. So normally we would now fully define the circle, but just for this exercise, I'm not going to worry. So what happens now is with the revolved boss base function, what ends up happening is we sweep this circle around this center line. So let's go there, features, revolved boss base, and you can see we've swept this around that center line. So what ends up happening is we have a pretty sweet looking donut. Okay, now there's a couple of things you must just note about this. If we just have a look at the sketch, all right, let's go normal 2. If this donut were to touch the center line, we would not have a gap in the middle. So that's quite handy for when you draw things like pulleys, like this example that's on the screen. You'll notice there's a gap here between the center line and the profile of the pulley. And the reason we leave that gap over there is because we want this circle in the middle here. If you wanted that to be solid, you would draw your profile against the center line. You would not leave that gap. Obviously, the distance of this gap is half of the diameter of your circle, because this gap is once again going to be applied on the other side once you revolve it. The other thing that's important to note here, please, is that this is a single profile. Okay, it's one shape. It's not multiple shapes that you can revolve around there. It needs to be one shape. Otherwise, you're going to have to select each one of the shapes individually in order to revolve it. The last thing I want to say is it is a closed profile. So in other words, this whole thing is a shape. You can't revolve just a single line or just a single arc. It does need to be a closed entity unless you're doing a thin feature, but we'll get to that later on probably. So it has to be a closed feature like this. Now, I think the best way for me to explain this is if we think about a nice car rim, okay, a nice mag wheel of a car. The way we would draw that is we would use revolves. So I'm going to start on the front plane, and I'm going to draw a sketch, and I'm going to start with my center line. Again, I'm not going to fully define this just for the sake of time. I don't want to waste your time, so just bear with me. So I'm going to now draw half of the front cross section of this room. So what we're going to do is the following. More there. Okay, I'm just guessing these dimensions. They are of no significance here. I'd like to make that a bit taller. Okay, again, this is not for, I'm not trying to win a design prize here. This is just to illustrate a point. Okay, so basically I'm just drawing the profile that I want this mag wheel to take in the end. Make that thicker. And let's draw in that up to there. I'm just going to trim away this full piece. The design ended up a little bit different to what I thought. I'm just going to remember, if the line's underdefined, we can you can just click and drag it. Okay, so I'm just making these a bit thicker just for my own sanity. All right, I'm going to add a couple of fillets here. Let's see how that looks. Okay, this is not a very big mag wheel, obviously. Why not? There we go. Let's make that a bit smaller. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to revolve this around this axis over here. So features, just close that, revolve boss base, and you can see it has already detected my center line. So basically what you would do here is under axis of revolution, you're going to select the line around which you want to revolve this object. Okay, then if you need to, you may have to select the contours in which are going to revolve around there. I'm just quickly going to move this out a little bit. I want a little bit more of a gap in the middle. That should be fine. Oh dear. Revolve. Okay, and I'm going to apply it. Tick. Okay, so there is my mag wheel. Very easy step just to get this thing revolved. Now the next thing we're going to talk about in this section of work is a circular pattern. Now what circular pattern allows us to do, it allows us to copy a certain object around an axis as well. So for example, and that's why I drew this room. In the middle of this room here, we need to have mounting holes that are going to mount onto the studs on the car. So I'm going to draw on the surface. Sketch, if my computer will let me. Oh dear, seems like we've got a bit of a freeze here. Alright, and we're back. We had a bit of a freeze there, but I'm back. So we want to mount these holes. So I'm going to select the surface and go normal 2. And I'm going to, the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to draw the PCD. Now you don't always have to draw the PCD, but I find this helps quite a lot. Okay, so we're going to draw a circle. We're going to give it a size. So let's make it 85. And a PCD has to be a construction line. So we're going to click on the circle and we're going to say for construction. Under the options in the property manager, we set for construction. Click the tick. Okay, and there is our circle. Now I'm going to draw the first little circle at the top here. Okay, and we're going to make it 6 millimeters or 12 at least, radius 6. Alright, now I want to pattern this 5 times around the center point. So you'll notice that here is a linear sketch pattern. We go to circular sketch pattern. That's the one I'm interested in this case. Alright, parameters. The first parameter is the point around which I want to do the pattern. So that will be this center point. Entities to pattern is the circle, and I want it 5 times. So I just increase that number to 5. I click the tick. And there we have it. Now you'll notice it is underdefined, so I need to fully define it by doing a dimension in the X and the Y direction from the center point. And the rest of the drawing will become fully defined. Now I'm going to cut it, extrude cut, blind through all. Okay, and there are my 5 holes going through all. The next thing I want to do is I want to draw some lovely spokes over here. So I'm going to also once again use the circular sketch pattern to draw my space saving spokes. I'm going to start at the center line over here, and you're going to see why in a minute. Alright, again, I'm not going to make this fully defined just for the sake of time. Just a little bit smaller. Okay, and I'm going to draw one line on this side, and I want it to be symmetrical, so that's why I've got the center line. So I want to copy that line about the middle over there, and I'm going to trim away everything else I don't need, just like that. And we're going to put a sketch radius in quickly, and on each one of these 4 corners, 1, 2, 3, 4, sketch radius. Okay, apply it, and now we're going to pattern this around this midpoint, the center point over here. So same as we did before, we go to circular sketch pattern, parameters, we're going to select this midpoint over here. Alright, and then entities to pattern, we're going to select each one of these lines consecutively. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Amount of times you want to pattern it, let's increase that until our room looks good. It's 1 less, 11. Nice. Alright, features, extrude cut through all, and there we have a pretty good looking rim. Alright, so that is the revolve and the circular pattern function. I just want to mention something here quickly as well. Under features, so that was the sketch, linear sketch pattern and circular sketch pattern. Under features, we've got linear pattern and circular pattern as well. This will pattern a feature. So if you have, say we drew that and we cut it, we could pattern that cut around here as well. Be pretty much the same thing as your linear sketch pattern, your sketch pattern. I find this a little more tricky to use, but it is available. The only difference is in this case you would be patterning a feature, so like an extrude or an extrude cut, rather than just the sketch. While we're just on that, I just want to show you quickly how to use the linear sketch pattern. So let's just start a new drawing. And say we want to draw a barbecue grid, expanded metal mesh, if we want it for some reason. So what we do is we draw our sheet and extrude it by 2 millimeters, whatever distance, it really doesn't matter. Draw on this top surface, okay, and we go normal 2. Now what we do is we draw one of the little triangle, the diamond shapes that we would normally cut out of here. Just like this. Okay, there's our little diamond shape. Obviously you fully define it, I'm not going to. And you use linear sketch pattern. Now, the first direction is we wanted to go along that axis. The second direction, along that axis. Right? So, entities to pattern, we want to pattern this whole thing. Okay, and you can change the direction by pressing the arrow or by just clicking on this little square over there. Let's give this a little bit more distance in between. 20 seems to be fine. Let's increase the amount of entities. Okay, it doesn't matter that it overlaps there. Okay, let's make that 50. Oh no, 2 is fine. I mean 10 is fine. Okay, all the way to the end, click the tick. That just says that it would be a lot of relations. Do we want to turn it off? So I just said yes. Now we can say features, extrude cut, and through all, and there you have it. So the linear sketch pattern is very similar to the circular sketch pattern in that you use it to pattern, except obviously the linear one works in 2 axes, an X and a Y direction, and the circular sketch pattern works about a center axis. Now the first exercise in the book is, I'm going to delete that for now. If we look in the book, the first exercise, this is more an example just to show you that from this profile we can get to this pulley, but if you'd like to draw this, it's probably not a bad idea. So in the book, the first exercise is to draw this ball. We say it should be 60 millimeters and it has to be fully defined. So let's go back here and we're going to start a new drawing. Part, okay, front plane, sketch. Okay, and we're going to start off with a center line. Center line is always critical. Okay, obviously. Then I'm going to use a 3-point arc. And I'm going to make it the radius of the arc 60. Wait, did it say diameter or radius in the question? Diameter of the ball should be 60, so the radius is 30. Okay, and I want to make this fully defined. So this point has to be on the center line. So let's make it coincident. And remember what I said before is this has to be a closed entity. It can't be open. Right? Now we have features, revolve, click the tick, and there we have a round ball. So that is the extreme basics of patterning. Oh, right, let's do this one quickly. Alright, the following picture is of a mounting base for high accuracy camera tripod. Each of the 10 holes will be used for an M10 bolt. The PCD of the holes must be 80 millimeters. Use the circular pattern function to draw the sketches for these holes. The base must be 100 by 100 by 25. So let's start off by drawing the base. We know it needs to be 100 by 100 by 25. So we're going to go new, part, okay, and we're going to start on the top plane. Sketch. We make it 100 by 100. Right, and we're going to extrude this. Features, extrude by 25 millimeters. Okay, so there we have our base. Now we want to draw those circles on top of here. So we draw the PCD. In fact, let's draw 2 center lines quickly. Make life a little easier for ourselves. Oopsie. Come back and fix that in a minute. Okay, center line 1, and this point and this line must be midpoint. Right, let's draw the circle, the PCD, from that intersection point for construction. Alright, and my memory is fading me. Well, no, not really. I just couldn't remember the 80 millimeters. Okay, the PCD of the holes must be 80 millimeters. So we're going to make this a mean 80 millimeters. Now, we know that it must be an M10 bolt. So we're going to do a 10 millimeter hole. Smart dimension, and make the hole 10 millimeters. Alright, now we use circular sketch pattern. Okay, parameters. We're going to pattern around this point. What are we going to pattern? this circle. How many times? 10. I believe that's what the question said. Let's check. 10 holes, that's correct. Alright, click the tick. We need to get this fully defined. So from in the X direction and the Z direction, just to one of the holes. Oops. From there to the center line. Okay, features, extrude cut through all. And there we have our tripod mounting base for a high accuracy camera. That is the basics behind patterning and the revolve command.